Hello and welcome back to RareRoo Crafts. I'm Sarah and today I've come on to share with you how I make my paper leather. So some of you might remember that I made this journal as part of the Bright and Prosperous 2021 collaboration, and I covered it with my faux leather, my paper leather. And I had lots of people asking how I'd made the leather, so I thought I would jump on and share that with you. So I'll probably do it as two parts because I also had a bar of chocolate with my girls the other day, and it came in this like really nice little cardboard package, and I thought that might make a really cute little sort of leather effect wallet that you could put some goodies in and send somebody. So I thought what we'll do is we'll make some paper leather and then I will cover this and turn it into a little wallet thing, but I'll probably do it in the two videos, like I say, one to show you how to make the paper leather and then we'll make that together. So to make your paper leather, you're obviously going to need some paper. So I used these rolls, and they're great big long, can't get it all in the camera, but they're great big long craft paper. It was wrapping paper that Hobbycraft did just for Christmas when the shop was still open. They'd got the red, green, and they'd got a blue as well, and I wish I'd bought the blue, and when Hobbycraft opens back up I will be going to see if they've got the blue, because I will pick up a roll of that as well. So it is just like craft wrapping paper. It's not terribly thick, but that worked absolutely fine. So that's the paper that I used, but I've seen people use all sorts, paper bags. I'm going to also have a go with just some craft paper, because I want to make a insert out of the craft, but I want that to look like leather as well, so I'm going to have a go with that as well. I'm just going to move my camera up just a little bit. There we go. So first things first, I need to decide what colour I'm going to do, and I think I'm going to go for green today. So I'm going to cut a strip of this paper big enough to cover the piece that I'm doing. So I'm going to cut it nice and big because I can trim it out when I come to use it, and it will sort of almost shrink down a little bit as you make the paper leather, because obviously you put lots of crinkles and things into it. So that's probably quite noisy and probably quite irritating, but there we go. I do apologise. There we are. So I'm going to start with my piece of paper and my craft piece. So I'm going to need those two pieces of paper. You're going to need some inks. Now I've got mostly distress inks. That's the majority of the ink that I've got, and I've found that the distress ink works really well. So I'm going to use a selection of green distress inks, and I'm going to use some browns as well for the craft, and I might even put a little bit of brown on the green just to help bring out the colour in the green a little bit. If I was using red, I'd go for some reds, I'd put some browns in there, I'd put some aged mahogany, that sort of thing in there. I will add in some vintage photo if I can find it. I haven't used the oxides. I found the oxides are a little bit too chalky, but the original distress inks I found really good. And then I do have a few StazOns. I haven't got many StazOn inks, but I have got a timber brown, a saddle brown, an olive green and a black. So I've got those out as well to use. And they're good because obviously they don't move with water. They all stay wherever you put them. I've got a couple of blending tools out and some sponges so that I can put the inks on. And I've also got out just some gloves, just because you do get quite mucky, your hands do get quite inky doing this process, and I'm working in the vaccination clinics at the moment and nobody really wants a vaccination from somebody who's got bright green hands, so I'm going to pop some gloves on. So to start with, first things first, I'm just going to move all of this out of the way. The first thing you want to do is screw your paper up, literally as if you were going to throw it in the bin. And screw it up in a nice tight ball, and then you're going to open it up and you're going to do it again. And what you're wanting to do is put as many sort of crinkles and texture into your paper as you can get, and obviously you want to go all the way up to the edges and keep opening it out and crumpling it back up, and you can do this as many times as you want until you've got that sort of that texture. That's what you're looking for, and you just keep going until you've got it as crinkled or as textured as you want your leather to look. So that's enough for me for that one, and then I'm going to do the same for this one. So I'll crumple this one up and then I'll come back. Okay, so I've crumpled that one up as well. Now this one was a lot thicker, so it was actually harder to crumple up, and it didn't take as much texture, but that's okay because I'm quite liking that. I'm going to get a slightly different look on this one, so that'll be quite interesting to see. So the next thing that you need to do is go in with your inks. So I start with the paler of the inks that I'm using. So for this brown for the craft, I'm going to start with a bit of a brushed corduroy, and I'm just going to load my sponge up and just gently go over all those crinkles. Now you don't want too much ink because you don't want it to settle in the valleys. You only want it to hit the peaks of the cardstock like that. You can go direct to paper with your pad, but what you're going to get there, if you notice, is you're going to get some slightly darker, because obviously you're going to get a lot more ink transferring. I like to have that control, and I like to sort of build it up a little bit more slowly, and using sort of different colours of ink, because I think that's what helps to give different tones and things. So obviously if you were going to see both sides of your leather, you'd have to ink both sides. You're not on my project, so I'm only going to do the one side. So I'm now coming in with a slightly darker, so this one is a vintage photo, and again I'm just going to go, I'm not too worried about right up to the edges because I'm going to be cutting this out, so you're not going to see the edges. I'll ink the edges once the piece is sort of finished. And again, it's up to you how dark you want your piece to sort of end up, and you sort of go with whatever level of ink you want. So I'm now going to go to my walnut stain, and again just hit those high points, not too much of this one. Now that will move, not too much, but that is going to move a little bit when we get to the next stage. So I am also going to go in with just a little bit of the timber brown stays on ink, because that won't move when I put the water on shortly. So I just need to find a sponge for this. Haven't got any blending sponges for my stays on. I find it ruins the sponges, so I just buy cheap makeup sponges and use those. It sort of feels like it eats away at the sponge. I assume it's the ink in it. And again, you can go direct to paper. Just remembering not to go too heavy, too hard, because this is going to stay. This isn't going to, this isn't going to move any. Okay. And then you can go back in as you want with any of your lighter ones. So I think that's going to suffice for me for this piece. So then I'm going to come to my green piece, and I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to start with my lighter colour, which is the peeled paint, which might not show up, but that's what I'm going to start with. Yeah, you can see it, but it's very light. So with this one, I can afford to go direct to paper. One of the things you just got to be a little bit careful of when you are screwing your paper up, when you are inking it, and when you get into the next stage where you're moistening it, you need to just be careful that you don't rip it, particularly with ones like this wrapping paper, because it is quite fragile. It's quite a thin paper. It will end up actually being structurally a little bit more stable and less likely to rip, but in this stage it's still quite fragile, so just bear that in mind really, and be a bit careful with it. So I'm now going to go in with some forest moss, and again I'm just getting in there and hitting those high points. There's no sort of rhyme or reason to it, it's just to sort of help get that texture, because the wrinkliness actually most of that will dissipate in the next stage. You'll still see it because that's why we're inking it, but it's going to lie a lot flatter once we get to it. So I've got some of the olive green stays on, so I'm just going to swipe over with that. So I'm being a little bit more forceful with the ink on this one, just because it's the green, it's that little bit paler, sorry, a little bit darker, the actual paper, so it's harder to see the inks on it. So I'm just being a bit more aggressive with the inking. And then I'm just going to go in again with a little bit of that timber brown. It's just literally hitting those high points with this one. And then that's that. So that's my inking done. So I'm now going to set that off to one side. All the inks can be put away, and then we'll get on with the next bit. Okay, so that's all now ready. My inks are all put away. I am going to put some gloves on at this point because I have already started to get a little bit of ink on my hands. You don't have to, obviously, it's not going to hurt you getting the ink on your hands. I just, for work purposes, don't want to get it on my hand. So I'm going to get a little tub and a brush, just a paintbrush, and in my tub I'm going to put some conditioner. This is just hair conditioner, and I'm going to get some. I don't know if I've got enough. I might have to. We'll start with this, and if I need more I'll go upstairs and find another bottle, but I have used most of it making the other stuff. I love this because it actually makes your paper leather smell really nice too. That's a really horrible noise, I do apologise. I've then got some glycerin, so I'm just going to put a good, and there's no measurements or anything to it, it's just a glug of glycerin, a glug of the hair conditioner, and then I'm going to put some water in there as well, just to make it a bit looser. And then I'm going to give all of that a really good mix in my little tub. And I'll start with the brown piece just because I can get that most of that in shot, so it's a bit easier. So I want it to be just a tiny bit thinner than that. So you want it to be like single cream is the best sort of consistency I found for it. And I've tried it with just the hair conditioner, and that worked okay. And I've tried it with just the glycerin, and again that worked okay. But for me, the best solution that gave me a really nice, supple, real leather look effect was when I used both. And you're just going to get a load of that on your paper, like so. Like I say, this is where you will get some movement of the ink, because obviously some of these inks are water-based and we've got water-based products. And now with your hands, hence the gloves, you're going to start really rubbing this in and really massaging that paper. And you want to really get this solution down into the fibres of that paper. Massage it in and get it working on the fibres of the paper, you know, in the same way that hair conditioner and glycerin works, you know, on our skin and in our hair. It smooths down and sort of smooths out the wrinkles. We want it to do the same thing, smooth down those fibres, and that's looking really nice. And then I'm going to flip it over. And because I want it to be super supple, I'm going to do it on both sides. And because I want this, when it dries, to act and feel like leather rather than paper. So it'll be like a really thin sort of suede when I finish with this. And if you didn't give it the varnish at the end, you'd get a more suede-like look rather than a leather look. So I'm just going to really massage this in. Like I say, make sure it gets right down into those fibres, and you don't want any stiffness left at all in this. You want it to be, and if you're struggling to move it about, just spray some water on there. You do want it to be really quite wet, but again, you've got to be really careful with this now, really gentle with it, because this is quite fragile at this point. It is, you know, this is where if you're going to tear it, this is the point at which you're most likely to tear it. And as you can see, now that I'm massaging this in, this paper has gone completely flat again. And that's what I was saying about, that's why you need to make sure you've got sufficient ink to show all those crinkles and creases. And when you're sort of doing it on the dry paper, it can look a bit harsh and you think, oh my goodness, I've put too much on. And then when it dries, it actually looks really fab. And I've done it the other way, where I've sort of not put so much on because I thought I'm going a bit heavy-handed. So I've slowed it down a bit and, you know, put a bit less on. And then once it dries, it looks a little insipid and I wish I'd put more on. So I think that's just a practice thing, really. So I'm going to keep massaging this in. My jumper sleeves are coming down. This is my crocheted jumper. It's one of my recent. It's a bit on the big side, but it's quite nice for loafing around the house in, which is all we do at the moment. So it's quite nice. Okay. So what I'm looking for is that feeling that it's gone all the way through. That this is, so this is, because it's thick, this is still, I can sort of feel that the fibre is not got this all the way through. So I'm just going to keep wetting it and applying that mixture and rubbing it in until I get to the point where I can feel that it's wet, it's moist all the way through. So I'm going to do that and then I'll come back. So I've put the craft card off to dry now. That took a little bit more massaging and a bit more of the mixture than this one does, just because of the thickness of that, because it's craft card as opposed to a paper, which obviously this one is. It's quite a thin wrapping paper, but it's the same process. I am going to just work the glycerin and air conditioner and water mixture into this paper, give it all a really good, and you can sort of feel it relaxing. You can feel the fibres relaxing under your hand as you're doing it. It's quite a sort of cathartic, relaxing craft, really. It's quite quick, and you see the changes, and you can feel it. It's a very tactile craft. You can feel it all under your fingertips. You do get an inky mess everywhere, so I have to give my desk a good clean down afterwards, but that's okay. It doesn't take much to clean it up. So like I say, the alcohol ink won't move anyway, and the distress ink is water soluble. So just a quick clean over with a cloth or a wipe or something, and there we go. So again, Lincoln's leaves. Again, you're just going to keep rubbing that in. Like I say, you can feel it. This one has relaxed so much quicker than the other one did. I can feel this is relaxed already. And you're just going to use your fingertips, get it in there. Obviously, just be careful that you don't sort of over rub in any one area and pill the fabric or rub a hole in the fabric, or when you come to lift it up, just be careful obviously that you don't tear the fabric. I have torn one or two pieces a little bit, but most of the time it's only right on the edges if you do tear it, and you can usually rectify that. Just trim a little bit off or glue it back down. You don't really notice because it's quite textured anyway. So you could do this with any paper and card, I would imagine. It's just a case of, you know, obviously the thicker the paper, the thicker the card, the more work you might have to put into this bit. See there, I'm creasing it, so just be careful not to ruin it after all that hard work. And then what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to put this to dry. Now last time it was dry outside and I pegged them on my washing line and they dried beautifully hanging out on my washing line, which was great. It's not such a nice day here today, so I will probably put them on a board and just pop them over the radiator to dry for an hour or so. Once they're dry, I'll come back to you and show you what we've got. Okay, so it is now the next day, and my paper leather has dried on both pieces. So I just left them on the side. This one I put slightly over the radiator to dry. Sometimes you'll get like a little bit of marking where perhaps you can still see a bit of the hair conditioner. All I do is just take a paper towel and just give the whole thing a bit of a rub over, and it'll just take out any of those marks. It picks up some of the extra ink. This one, you've not really noticed it so much on this one. And you can see you get a slightly different look. So this one looks more suede-like. Take me autofocus off. There we go. Put my autofocus on even. Yeah, that one looks a little bit more sort of suede-like. You've got the the fibre, it's a bit more sort of fibrous, this one. So that actually looks quite suede-like, and I might do the inner just in this, and I might not varnish this one so that it looks more like suede, because I like that suede look. And this one, you've got more of a, that sort of more traditional leather look, and once this is varnished and you've got that sort of high gloss finish, you'll get that more leather-like look. But the really nice thing about both pieces, both the card, which is obviously slightly thicker, and the paper, is that they are now super supple, and it's more like, it feels more like a piece of fabric than it does a piece of paper. You can sort of you know, bunch it up, and you will get a few creases in it, but not like you would if it was a piece of paper. You know, you don't, it won't screw up in a ball quite like it the same as if it was a piece of paper. And yeah, you've got this real sort of flexibility and suppleness to it. So now it really does look and feel more like leather or suede. And this is what you'd get if you didn't ink it at all. So you'd still get that suedey sort of leather look to it. It's just much more subtle because obviously you haven't got any of the inked lines in it. So, you know, you just pick what works for you the best. So yeah, I really love it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my chocolate wrapper and I'm going to turn it into a little purse. And yeah, we will see what that turns out like, but I'm going to do that in a separate video. So for this video, that's it for now. I hope you've enjoyed having a look at how I create my faux suede or faux leather. Like I say, there's tons and tons of videos out there, so you've just got to find what works for you. But for me, the hair conditioner with the glycerin gave me the nicest sort of finish and the look that I was going for. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's given you the information that you wanted, for those of you that asked how I made mine. And like I say, I'm going to go off now and make another video, and we're going to turn this into a little leather wallet. So I will see you all again very, very soon in another crafty video. Bye for now.